is a popular food prepared from fermented maize dough. Fanti Kenkey, a staple food for over 70% of the inhabitants of southern Ghana, is expertly prepared in Amosima, Yamransa and other coastal towns. This industry is dominated by female entrepreneurs. In Amosima and Yamransa, some of the women have been in the industry for about 40 years or longer without a break. It is a business managed by entrepreneurs, majority of who inherited it from their kindred. Mothers usually engage the assistance of their daughters, who in the long run become the proprietresses after the former has retired. We were privileged to find one of the proprietresses of the kinki industry in Yamransa, Madam Ajwa Kunde, at work, and she was kind enough to permit us to film almost the entire process of kinki making. Kinki making is a business sited at any place where cooking is convenient. Almost all the entrepreneurs who own the business work in their homes. The work, however, needs a lot of helping hands. In this industry, a very small number, not really significant, solicit for financial help from banks. Some of the women credit the maize from the sellers and pay back after marketing the kinki. There are others who started the business from their own resources. Maize and firewood constitute the main source of raw material input for Kenkey production. Other materials include dry plantain leaves, maize husks, and asofo. Firewood as a source of energy is usually obtained from hewers who get them from the bush or forest. They are procured in bundles for those ranging from 8 centimeters to about 15 centimeters in diameter, or in singles for larger ones bigger than 15 centimeters. At least 20,000 cedis worth of firewood is needed to produce about 120 balls. The sources of the maize vary, but most often it is obtained from Techiman in the Bonohafo region through middlemen and women. The cost of one maxi bag sells for around 200,600 cedis. The wrapping materials used are of plant origin. They are maize husk for kinki and dry plantain leaf or asofo leaf, Christiana africana of the Tiliaceae family for Fanti Kenkey. More hands are needed in this enterprise because it is labor intensive. Where the number of balls or kinki produced ranges between 120 and 140, about 5 people or more are appropriate. One often finds a proprietress working with a daughter and the others coming to offer their labor for a fee. The payment is done according to the number of balls molded and wrapped. The people who undertake this business are mostly illiterates. One such kinki producer encountered during the research was Madame Konde, a native from Yamransa in the central region. However, there is a slim chance of finding educated ones who may be school dropouts, choosing the job as a means of meeting their financial needs. The most educated people in this business we encountered ended their formal education at middle school Form 4. The processes involved in kinki production can be grouped into 3 major phases, namely pre-fermentation phase that involves cleaning, soaking, milling, mixing with water and doughing. The second phase is the spontaneous fermentation process. The third is the post-fermentation phase that is actually the making of the product kinki. It includes mixing etso or aflata, partially cooked dough with a fresh dough, molding and packing, and final cooking of the product for 3 to 6 hours. A 5-liter container is used to measure the quantity of maize required. This may depend on the quantity of maize available. However, normally, A plastic bowl of about 1.5 gallons capacity is used as a standard measure, 10 of which constitute a mini bag of maize. Between 13 and 20 rubber bowls of maize, depending on the water content of maize, is used in a production. Maize kernels are cleaned by winnowing, which is normally achieved by the traditional method of throwing the maize into the air so that the chaff can be carried away by a stream of air. Stones, damaged grains, insects and pieces of maize cobs are removed by hand picking. The maize grains are washed by putting them in water and stirring to allow the grains to settle, and the loose, often insect-damaged grains float to the surface. These are then scooped off using baskets or sieves and discarded or used for domestic animal feed. The maize grains are then washed with water and put into containers or large basins. Cleaned maize grains are steeped or soaked in ordinary water in large basins or steeping tanks. The steeping, soaking process is usually for 24 hours or overnight, but this may be prolonged from 2 to 3 days depending on the moisture content and variety of maize used. In the production of Fanti Kenkey, steeping takes 2 to 3 days. Steeping allows the grains to absorb sufficient water, which results in increase in sizes of the grains and conditions them for subsequent milling. This helps in developing the necessary dough textural characteristics. During steeping, the maize grains start fermenting, and the pH of the steeped water reduces from about 5.8 to 6.5 to 4.0 to 4.5. Lactic acid fermentation is reported to begin during soaking, and molds present in the maize grains are inhibited and disappear after soaking. The steeped maize is washed again with tap water and put into large cylindrical baskets to drain the water. Steeped maize is milled into a fine, smooth meal. The milling process is done at a corn milling machine, popularly known as corn mill. The mill consists of 2 discs, with their surfaces grooved to allow considerable friction when one turns. The discs are mounted on a spindle that in turn is connected by belt to a motor. As one disc rotates while the other is stationary, the grains are pushed between them. The rotating disc rubs the grains against the stationary disc, thereby crushing them into powder. Milled maize is mixed with appropriate amount of water to a moisture content of about 50 to 55% with water, and this mixture is kneaded by hand into a stiff dough. The moisture content of the dough affects the rate of fermentation as well as the quality and shelf life of the dough. Low moisture content of 45% reduces the rate of acid production and early onset of the mold growth. High moisture content of 65% and 80% on the other hand develops high concentration of acids and subsequently a high degree of sourness. The stiff dough mixture prepared is left to ferment spontaneously for 2 to 3 days. The quality of kenkey is dependent to a large extent on the fermentation process to which the dough undergoes. Without fermentation, the kenkey prepared will be too sweet, and the taste and texture associated with Fanti Kenkey will not be achieved. Dough fermented for about 2 days is often used in preparing kenkey. However, kenkey prepared in this way lacks the sourness and characteristic aroma associated with well-fermented dough. In order to reduce the time period of fermentation, some large-scale producers encourage back sloping as a means of facilitating fermentation by adding old dough to fresh dough. With this method, the dough attains all the desired characteristics within 24 hours of fermentation time. However, more than 3 days of fermentation of the dough often results in undesirable kenkey characteristics such as an unpleasant flavors and high acidity with extreme sourness. At Amosima, half the quantity of dough is made into slurry by adding the dough to boiling water in a metal pot placed on an open fire. The slurry is stirred till a thick gelatinous paste is produced as it is being heated. The gelatinous paste is known by Fantis as eto. When salt is added to this paste, the Ga people call it a flatter. The remaining half of the dough, uncooked dough, is mixed with the hot aflata or eto with the aid of a wooden paddle. The mixture is vigorously stirred till a blend is obtained that can easily be molded into balls. Thus, aflata or eto acts as a binding agent, giving kinki its firm and semi-sticky consistency. Both Ga kinki and Fanti kinki undergo similar processes. The difference between Ga kinki and Fanti kinki is that in the preparation of Ga kinki, salt is added to the portion of the dough made into slurry to produce a flatter. The dough mass formed after mixing parts of the cooked and uncooked dough is divided into portions and molded into balls of about 300 gram weight. This is done manually by moistening the palm with water and using it to mold a quantity of the dough into a ball. The hand is used as a weighing scale by feeling it in the hand of the molder. The correct weight is attained by adding small bits of the dough mixture onto the round ball dough placed on the leaf for molding. The correct weight is felt by the molder. The molding process requires a lot of hands since it is labor-intensive. At this stage, labor may be hired to hasten the process. People are paid according to the number of balls produced. Food packaging is an important operation in Kenkey processing. The materials used are derived from plant sources and, in some cases, impart color and flavor to the food. Two kinds of leaves are used in wrapping Fanti Kenkey. These are dry plantain leaves used at Yamuransa or Asofo, leaves used at Amosima. Indeed, the kind of leaf used gives the Kenkey a different color and taste. The Asofo leaf makes the outer part of the ball of the Kenkey, popularly known as akrankran, look greenish, while the plantain leaf gives it a light brown color. On the other hand, Ga Kenkey is wrapped with cleaned maize husk. The balls are arranged in layers in a drum, empty petroleum drum. The bottom of the drum is pre-lined with sticks, corn leaves, waste husks or palm leaves, after which the first layer of the balls are arranged. The number of balls in a layer depends on the sizes of the balls. Between 120 and 140 balls may be arranged in a drum, and the layers are interspersed with palm leaves. Buckets full of water are poured into the drum containing the balls before covering the drum, cloth or polythene sheet. The top of the last layer is strewn with palm leaves and finally covered with jute sack, cloth or polythene sheet. About 15 stones are arranged on the sack to make the covering firm. Fire is set using firewood. The boiling normally takes about 3 to 6 hours. During boiling, the layers may be depressed under the weight of the stones. In this situation, a little more water is added. After the Kenkey has sufficiently boiled, the heat is reduced by removing the firewood to let it simmer. This continues until the temperature reaches a level at which the balls of Kenkey can be easily counted. After boiling, a darkish water is left in the drum. Part of it is used to smear the balls to let them look attractive. This water is also used for medicinal purposes. For example, some operators use it as a cure for some stomach ailments. Cooked Ga Kenkey balls are placed in a big container, lined and covered with polythene sheet to preserve heat until it is sold. However, Fanti Kenkey does not necessarily need to be sold when hot. It is packed in fours and sold in polythene bags. The Ga Kenkey has a shelf life of about 2 to 3 days, while that of the Fanti Kenkey has a shelf life of about 3 to 7 days with no refrigeration. Kenkey can be eaten with many different accompaniments, the simplest of which is fried or smoked fish with pepper. The pepper is actually a mixture of pepper, tomatoes, onion, and salt ground or blended together. As can be seen from this clip, those who eat kenkey with fish and pepper really do enjoy it.
Music!